this is a little bit controversial.
Yeah, it is, because we've had conversations about it with people
So
that don't always agree.
Hey, I'm Rusty.
And I'm Heather.
And we're the Bryants, and this is the Redeemed Marriage Podcast.
We are here to encourage healthy marriages, strengthen wounded marriages, and begin the process of restoration to broken marriages.
We aren't licensed counselors, but we are a redeemed couple that loves the Lord and wants to help you journey through this messy, challenging, and fun part of life called marriage. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. And you know, I go back and listen to some of these and I say the same thing.
You do,
at the beginning.
And you never let me talk.
It's the beginning. And like what I really want to say is, good morning, Vietnam! That's
I'm so glad
that's
that you don't.
Robin Williams' movie, for those of
it.
you who don't remember. I don't know why, but every time I sit here, because I kind of feel like I look like I'm in the setting that he's in with the mic in front of me on a boom stand, and I just want to go, instead of going, hey everybody, welcome back to another episode, I want to go, good morning,
We
Vietnam.
heard it the first time.
I know, but this is
And
fun.
you always say, this is Rusty and Heather. And I'm like, I'm here too. Hi.
Well, go. You do the intro. Go.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Redeemed Marriage Podcast.
You
Was
didn't
that
introduce
good?
me. Who am I?
Oh, this is Heather. I mean, you
See?
stick to it.
Yeah. Well, and we also say our name at the intro, so
Yeah,
it doesn't.
that's true.
What,
It's fine.
We have to get into it somehow.
That's right.
But
We
all
do.
these podcasts that I listen to, they all kind of say the same thing
Yeah.
when they.
Welcome.
Because what
We're
else?
glad
do you,
you're here.
Yeah.
I
What
don't
else are you supposed to
know.
say? Anyway, hey, welcome.
Welcome back.
Good morning.
Oh, gosh.
If you're listening to this when it's post, because we post these at like 5 a.m. on Monday morning. So good morning.
Monday morning.
Okay, I got to start with this story because this is really cool. I haven't even told you this story.
Okay, I'm ready.
So today, so we've talked about this before. We both lead worship at our church. We're on the worship team, and we don't always lead at the same time or on the same days. But I was on the worship team this morning. We go back into the little green room where that's what we call it, where the band and the vocalist go back and hang out. And so me and the drummer were talking about podcasts, and he. Because he said something in reference to a podcast that we both listened to, because we've talked about it before, and the keyboardist, she said, "Is this a podcast that's just for guys, or can girls listen to it? Because I love podcasts." And I said, "Well, I mean, I can tell you the best podcast on the internet right now." And one of the other vocalists said, "It's yours," and then the keyboardist said, I didn't even know you had a podcast. What is it? And I said, well, it's me and Heather. And so she looked it up while we were sitting right there and followed it. That's y'all's cue to follow her.
it.
But then the bass player said, my wife is obsessed with y'all's and she actually messaged us this week. So, but he goes, she's obsessed, and he said she has been sharing this with all of her friends, everybody she knows. So if y'all's downloads have been going up, it's probably her. And so, hey, again, here's your prompt. Go share this with your friends. So then, this is the part I wanted to say. You got on to me for saying long stories this weekend, but this is the part I wanted to say. So then I said, yeah, you know, it's crazy how much our downloads have gone up just since we did the second season in October. And I said, I don't really know why. I said, they just, the listeners have gone way up. And the drummer said, I know why. He said, because God wants to use y'all's story, and he's using your story.
Well,
and I was like, there it is.
there it is.
Whoop. Yep. So, really cool though, because and then after between services, a retired pastor that now lives in our community who has been really, really encouraging and supportive of us. He stopped me again and just said how much he appreciated it, and he wished that he had it as a resource when he was a pastor. But he said he's still passing it along to other pastors and people. So I don't know. It's just a cool day, and one of the things that I love about that is I can sit there like in our church and see that there's people that are listening, But when we pull up our
That's
stats,
right.
there's only 20% of our downloads are from the state of Mississippi.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Crazy.
Mhm.
So
That's crazy.
anyway, hey, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
We're having a great time doing this.
Fun. It is fun.
So here we go. We're going to jump in. We're doing week number 4
Right.
of what we started at the beginning of the year of the habits of a healthy marriage.
Right.
We've been looking at Luke 2:52, trying to find out how did Jesus grow. And Luke 2:52 says that Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and favor with God and man. So if you haven't listened to them, be sure to go back and listen to wisdom, because we talk specifically about how to grow in wisdom in your marriage, like learning about marriage and how to have a healthy marriage. The second thing was our physical health and how to do that together as a couple. And then last week, we talked about our spiritual intimacy, which was a great episode. I love that we talked about that. So today, it's favor with man.
Yeah.
You know what that's about?
I do, actually. Thank you very much. About relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Friendships.
Yeah, when I saw this, obviously this verse is talking about Jesus, but we're just taking the concepts that Jesus, how he grew, and we're applying it to marriage. So I actually pulled up the concordance and kind of did a little research and was just like, what exactly does it mean? And really the gist of it was just talking about Jesus and how he related to other people and his relationship. So when we started talking about, well, how are we going to relate that to marriage? It was just very clear to me that we needed to just talk about all of the different aspects of relationships outside of the relationship with your spouse, but your relationship with other people.
Sure. And it can be your relationship with other people as a couple as well.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get started.
Yeah,
I want to do the first one that I want to talk about. I think this is a little bit controversial.
Yeah, it is, because we've had conversations about it with people
So
that don't always agree.
Yeah, so we want to kind of land right now, just land the plane for a second.
Right. And this is the having relationships with the opposite sex, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So you or your spouse, and what are the habits of a healthy marriage when it comes to relationships with members of the opposite sex?
Yeah.
And like I said, I think it's a little bit controversial to some people, because there are a lot of people out there that have really good friendships with people of the opposite sex. And some people will even say, well, I can't help it. I have to have these relationships because of work.
Right.
Yes, that we understand that
Sure.
there is some truth to that. But we also feel really, really strongly about boundaries and putting like some really strong boundaries in place when it comes to your relationship with the opposite sex.
That's right.
And I just want to throw this out real quick, because we've talked about this before, how if you don't know how to share the gospel with somebody, you just go to your story, because nobody can dispute your story.
Nobody can argue with
nobody
what God's
can
done
argue. That's
in your
right.
life. Yeah.
You just go and you say, "This is what Jesus has done for me." And
That's right.
if they believe it, great. If they don't believe it, that's that. I mean,
that's on them.
Yeah. And so when I even think about topics like this, all we can do is tell our story.
That's right.
And how it affected us. And then what we can say, hey, because of this, like, these are the things that we now know we should have had in
That's
place,
right.
and we
That's right.
should, and we continue to have in place now. Because, hey, if you're just picking this episode, I mean, if you're just turned us on for the first time and you don't know our story, Heather 10 years ago was unfaithful in our marriage. And so, I thought just for a second, just to kind of kick off this little part of what we're talking about with relationships, I mean, how did that, what went wrong?
Right.
What went wrong for
Sure.
you there?
Sure. Well, I think that to be honest, I had a lot of guy friends before we got married, and they were at where we went to school, and we had I had good friends that were of the opposite sex. I'm a very sports loving. I wasn't a really girly girl back in the day, and really I had a lot more in common with the guys and watching football and sports and things like that as I grew up. And so for me, it was very natural to have friends that were of the opposite sex. But I think to where that becomes a problem is when you start confiding in friends of the opposite sex. And I definitely think that that was the road that I went down, is starting to confide and share things that you don't need to share with someone of the opposite sex, about our marriage or about issues we were having or what bothered me or things like that. And that of course is not okay.
Well, it's when there's an emotional connection.
Sure.
And that's when the downfall comes.
Yeah.
And, we've learned because of that we even have to be more strict
Sure.
with our boundaries because we have lived through what the dangers of.
And but you know what? I can hear people thinking right now, oh, well, that doesn't apply to me because I haven't had an inappropriate relationship with somebody of the opposite sex, and so I don't have to have this boundary. But it's God always affirms what we're supposed to be talking about in the strangest of ways. If there's something that I'm like, oh gosh, I'm not sure if this is going to be well received, God always confirms it for me. And I was listening to a sermon in the past couple of weeks, and a very popular pastor who I listen to every week, he was talking about the boundaries that he puts up in his marriage. And he's never dealt with infidelity but I mean, they were very strict, not being alone with somebody of the opposite sex. And we might talk about some of these things, but the point that I'm trying to make after hearing him, it doesn't have to be boundaries just for somebody who has had, gone through infidelity or a relationship issue dealing with that. These are healthy boundaries that you should have to protect yourself from having to walk through what we walked through.
When we were talking about this topic, I thought, because I listened to the same sermon, and I thought the exact same thing, and I was like, people may think that we're crazy or a little bit out there, or we are too old-fashioned or whatever. Right. But you're exactly right. The thing I thought of was, here's this prominent pastor of a mega church who has authored books and is a fantastic communicator. And literally 2 weeks ago, he stood up and said, these are the things that I do to make sure that I'm protecting my marriage. And he said, I never am alone with somebody from the opposite sex. He doesn't travel alone. He doesn't stay in a hotel room by himself. There's just things that are put into place that he knows that he is, when it comes to relationships with the opposite sex, he has to have massive boundaries.
Right. And like we talk about boundaries for ourselves, boundaries like, to protect ourselves, but also to protect your spouse. It's a respect to, like if you were to see me outside, despite our story, if we didn't have the story that we had, if you were to see me out walking or alone with someone else, it's just, it doesn't look good. It doesn't give the appearance of innocence, and it makes your spouse, question and doubt and be insecure. And so it's for you as well as respect for your spouse.
I'm gonna put you on the spot just a little bit because there's little things that happened during the time 10 years ago when you were going through your period of being unfaithful. And you look back on things and you have a different perspective after after things have come out and stuff. But at some point, I don't know if you'll remember this conversation, but you actually sort of got on to me because you said that women think that I'm rude, and you specifically named a couple of acquaintances of ours that you said that when they try to hug me and I wouldn't hug them. I don't know that we've ever really talked about that, but what were you, what was the reason for that conversation? And now looking back on it, how do you feel about it?
You are putting me on the spot,
Yeah,
man.
big
And
time.
that's so hard. That's hard and deep, and and I haven't thought about it, but my gut reaction to that, of course, now looking back on it, I think, what in the world was I thinking? That was not a good conversation to have. Trying to get you to hug other women, and not to appear rude. I guess there was some sort of that would make me feel better if you did it too.
Yep.
That's honestly like the first thing that came to mind when you said it, that, I had relationships with the opposite sex, and I thought, well, I don't need to be the only one doing that, so maybe encourage him to have relationships with the opposite sex as well, which sounds exceedingly warped, but that's, you asked what I was thinking at the time, and at the time, that's probably what I was justifying it.
No, I've thought about that, and that's what I think was going on at the time. And the crazy thing is, I've always had some pretty significant boundaries, and I don't really. I think it was just from things that I learned and upbringing and stuff like that. But those are some of the things, and maybe people do think I'm a little bit rude when it comes to. But I've just never. I've never wanted to portray myself as being this, flirty or whatever with the opposite sex. And
sure. And I think a lot of people, especially girls, well, I don't know, I'm not going to say especially girls, probably both sides. You may have a husband like this, or you may be thinking, ooh, that's me, that use the flirtiness and say it's just my personality.
Right.
And that's what I did.
Yes.
Because I am a very outgoing person. I love people. I loved at that time being the center of attention. And I used it as an excuse that's just how God made me. Like, it's just, and that's not truth. That's not how God created me. Did he create me with a big personality? Absolutely. Did he create me to enjoy being around people? And I get kind of fueled by being around other people. But that is a way he created me, in giving more glory to him and not to get attention for myself. And that's 100% what I used it for. And honestly, it's a battle. Like, it still is. Am I doing this for attention, or am I doing you just have to be really careful with, this is how God created me to be.
Well, I think that when it comes to relationships with the opposite sex, you and your partner just really need to be on the same page.
Sure.
And you need to communicate. And if there is something that's uncomfortable, you need to be able to talk about it, and talk about it in a healthy way, and not condescending or blaming or whatever. Just, hey, this makes me a little bit uncomfortable.
Sure.
Can we talk about
Sure.
it? And there are ways to do that without causing problems or fights, or, just have a healthy conversation about it. But, for me, I would say in this area, always err on the side of caution.
That's right. That's right.
Because at the end of the day, your relationship with your spouse, it doesn't even compare to a relationship with somebody from the opposite sex. So, if you hurt that person or hurt that person's feelings because you're not able to act in the same way that maybe you used to act or whatever, that's okay. Like, it is. It's okay.
That's right.
Because you need to honor God. that was the big part, because I do think that people need to hear that and just need to be reminded, because everybody that's listening, I hope they get a little check that just says, okay, is there, a little bit of a self-evaluation? Is there anything unhealthy that's going on? Or is there am I even that line that's being drawn? Am I trying to get as close to that line as I possibly can without hurting anything?
Sure.
So the second thing would be just relationships that you may have individually with people of the same sex as you. So just your guy friends, your girlfriends, are those healthy? Are they healthy relationships that are strengthening your marriage, or are they hurting your marriage?
Right.
So you may have some examples of that.
Well, I think that the first thing that I think of is remembering that my unhealthy friendships, when we were going through what we went through, I confided to them instead of you. And I think, and not even just the opposite sex, anybody that I chose to talk to about things that should have been discussed with you. Now, especially girls who are listening, we all have things that we want to talk about with our girlfriends, but it should never be at the expense of your spouse. Like, I am not going to go and talk to my best friend about how you're driving me nuts, or how, putting you down, or, not engaging in conversation that is part of building up.
Yeah.
I don't want to tear you down, or, we've said this before, you can always find somebody to agree with you.
That's right.
Always find somebody to agree with you. And so, you just need to be careful that you're not going to someone else, to get them to agree with you about how bad your spouse is, or how bad he's treating you, or what he could, do differently. Anything like that, because you can find them that are going to agree with you.
And I think the habits of a healthy marriage are having friends that aren't just the friends that are going to agree with you and say what you want to hear.
Sure.
They're the ones that challenge you.
Absolutely.
And if you do, share something, about your spouse, good, bad, whatever, it's somebody that is going to encourage you and always encourage you in your marriage.
Right.
And so, a big part of that is picking friends and picking relationships that have the same values that you have, that, believe the same ways. And that's not saying you're not supposed to have friends outside of that. I mean, that's part of our calling is to love everyone and be friends, so that we can have relationships to point people to Jesus. But you're close, you're
people you do life with.
That's right. Those are that's a different level, and and that's where you have to be really selective, because you want people that are going to build you up. And some of this too also I believe has a lot to do with where you are on a maturity level. Because if you're in a position, if you're in even if your marriage is right now in a rocky place or whatever, well, yeah, you need to be in a place where your friends are really those big anchors for you that are going to really help you. If you're healthy and your marriage is healthy, then those are the times where you're able to develop some relationships that you're the one that's going to be helping that person.
Right.
They're the ones that are seeking you out for a friendship that can help. So a lot of that just has to do with healthiness and maturity and where you are with that.
Yeah, that's good.
So, okay, last thing. We'll land the plane.
Let's do it.
The last one is your relationships as a couple with other couples. And really what we're kind of getting at here is that we are all made for community. And, since there's boundaries with members of the opposite sex, there's also, there needs to be boundaries with members of the same sex. And we just talked about that. So then you get to a point where, hey, we need to be in community with people together.
Right.
And so that's where you get friendships, and you find friendships that are encouraging you and that you can do life with,
That's
you know,
right.
whether that's a small group at church or just, you know, other people that you've sought out that you know are, you know, on the same path that you're on, that are striving for the same things, that are wanting a healthy marriage and family and you know, spiritually, all of that. And you find those friends, and man, you
Hold on tight.
hold on tight.
Yeah, and you know, we have a pastor that says to us often, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. I think that is just as true with couple friends, like who you're hanging out with and what you're doing together on the weekends, you know, especially our friends that are listening that don't have kids yet. You know, it's just couple relationships. You know, what are you spending your time doing? And I wanted to come back to this when we were talking about not having friends of the opposite sex. If you like, we have a good friend that was actually your roommate in college, and thankfully he married somebody that I get along with great, and we can do couple things. He was a very dear friend of mine, but he wouldn't be a dear friend of mine anymore if his wife had not become a good friend of mine.
Right.
Does that make sense? And so if there is somebody that, you know, you and your spouse enjoy being around, or you enjoy being around, make it a couple thing. If that's something that fits. Now, we have been lucky enough where we have several group of friends that you enjoy hanging out with the husband just as much as I enjoy hanging out with the wife. That's not always going to be the case. There are going to be times where your wife is like, please, let's hang out with this couple, she's a good friend of mine, blah, blah, blah. And the husband may be like, that guy gets on my nerves. But that's sacrifice. And that is, that's taking one for the team, that you go out as a couple and enjoy it. Even if your spouse is the only one doing that. So I'm just saying that sometimes it's not the perfect match, but it's something that you can do just to be together.
Well, there's seasons of life too,
That's right.
where you're going to go through seasons of friends, and that's okay too. Like you have to be okay with, well, those were our dear friends during that season of life.
That's right.
And for whatever reason, you know, the kids are different ages and the different things. You're not hanging out as much. You know, those things happen. That doesn't mean you stop being friends with them, but you're just not doing life with them all the time. And so, you know, and there's other seasons of life where, I mean, I would say that we're in the season of life where we have a lot of couple friends, but none that we're just both like really, really close to as a couple.
Right.
We just have a lot of good friends.
Right.
And, you know, it's okay to be in seasons like that too, because we have a kid that's now in college. We have a kid that's in high school. And so we sort of don't, you know, we don't necessarily fit where the people we like to hang out with, they got, you know, little kids, and it's just different. It's very different. And so you just have to be okay with that and know that there's seasons that come and go, and God will bring the community to you.
That's right.
I do think that one great place to start, though, is with your church. And if you've got small groups at church or community groups that you can do life with, or at least go and seek out and find people that are in the same stage of life that you're in.
That's right. That's right.
But, you know, it's hard. It's really hard. I mean, look, I stood up on stage today and I sung with a bunch of people that I consider my friend, and I'm probably, 25 years older than all of them. I mean,
we have a bad habit of that.
Yeah, but like, so yeah, it's kind of hard, you know, and that's in that regards, it's hard for me to do life with those people.
Sure.
But I love them. They're all friends.
Absolutely.
They're friends of ours.
And we'd do anything for them.
Yep. But, you know, it's not like those are going to be our community people because they're just all in different stages than we're in. And we just have to learn to be okay with that, because our marriage is what's important.
Is our number one community.
Right. That's right. So, yeah, I just think that, you know, looking back on how Jesus grew in his relationships, it's just a reminder, that word relationships. We are all in relationship with people, whether they're opposite sex, people of our same sex, or couples together. And we just have to be the relationship that matters the most is your marriage, and you put that first, and then the other relationships fall under that, and get on the same page with that. So, anything in closing?
Nope.
Okay, so last thing, I'll remind people of this one thing. We are going to do our contest. We have a survey that is on social media that you can find on social media. If you can't find our survey, just send us a direct message. Send us a message on one of our social media platforms, and we will send you a link. It's 11 questions, and it will take you less than 5 minutes. But we've had some really, really great responses. I think I saw the other day that there's been over 13 different states represented.
That's fun.
A couple of different countries as well. And so this is just really great for us. And we're going to do a drawing. We're going to extend it to Valentine's Day.
Okay.
So that'll give us a couple of more weeks just to get the word out a little bit more. And then we'll do a drawing, and we'll give a marriage resource. So we're going to give one of our favorite marriage books away, and we might even throw something special in that we've been working on.
I'm so excited about this something special.
Yep. So please take just a few moments to do that this week if you haven't already done that. Like I said, you can go back on any of our Facebook posts because that's where we've been posting that link, and you can find it. So just go to our Three Strands Marriage Facebook page. You can find that link there, and then also you can send us a direct message through Instagram or through Facebook if you just want the link directly sent to you. So thanks again for listening, and we are honored that you've chosen to spend 30 minutes of your life with us.
Absolutely.
Hopefully we have been an encouragement and a help to you, and until next week, I hope you have a great week.
Goodbye, Ben.
Oh my goodness. Goodbye. Signing off.